Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the three-dimensional frequency. Today, as I sit here today, in my seat, on the spot, I have a realization of sorts. The realization came to me as I sat here and began to record this video, a realization that does not come too often in time. And this realization is that we are all one. We are all one in the extent of all extents that you can ever envision or imagine. And as I sit here speaking to you, the oneness of what is concocts the greatest feats that you've ever traversed in the unity consciousness of the entirety of the whole, an entirety of the whole that you can ever envision and that you could ever imagine to be true and to be what it is. And as I sit here and speak to you, I am speaking to myself. Essentially, consciousness itself is an entirety of a whole, of a God's consciousness so great and so grand that there is no separation. That the separation you perceive, that the separation that I perceive, that the separation that your neighbors perceive is the biggest and grandest illusion of all illusions in the past, present, and future of what is. As reality is so steeped in mistrust and reality is so steeped in all that there is, this reality I speak of that we are experiencing is a reality of separation. And the separation itself is the perception of the self, of the unifying self, of the everlasting self, of the unity consciousness of the self, of the reality fields, of no reality field, of all reality fields, of the reality field that we sit in as we sit here from a perspective, looking at a perspective of what is, listening to my transmission of what is, feeling like a singularity of what is as you sit there and listen to my transmission. But as I sit here and speak to you about the concepts of reality, I feel an entirety of a whole, as all pieces of the fractals of self floating out in the ethers, including you, including me, including your next door neighbor, including that other person who's also sitting there listening to my transmission. And the line proceeds and goes on into an eternity of fractals and more. All of these pieces and more are a part of a singularity, are a part of a singularity of a perception of a unity consciousness that's so great and so grand that you can never perceive what it feels like to be able to sit in the center of it all. That you can never perceive what it feels like to be able to perceive every single singularity from a center point perspective of what is, of the singular consciousness that I speak of, which is the greatest and grandest consciousness that is God's consciousness and God's perspective, which encompasses all of the perspectives of the whole, of the entirety of the whole, including your perspective as you sit there and listen to my transmission in this very moment. In this moment in time, as you sit there and listen to the concepts of my transmission, you may be able to grasp certain concepts, certain diluted ideas of certain reality fields, of a certain reality point from your perspective as you sit from your perspective of a soul's blueprint, so singular, so unique, so identical to the entirety of the whole, that you may be able to perceive my transmission in a different way than your next door neighbor, than that other person who's also listening to my transmission in this very moment in time. And that is because your soul's blueprint is a singularity of sorts. As you are a part of the entirety of a whole of what is, your soul's blueprint is a part of a singularity so massive in scale, so diverse in weight, that in this moment in time, you may not be able to understand the meaning of it all until you awaken to your destiny, to your mission, to the conglomeration of what is, what shall always be, and what you can never escape, and what you can never be without, which is the aspect and the concept and the energetic frequency of the entirety of the whole. As this entire time, as you've been perceiving reality from the carved out blueprints and the carved out blueprinted singularity of who and what you are as your soul traverses through this universe into different dimensional frequencies, into different aspects and fractals of what is, as you sit here as a singularity of an aspect of a fractal of your oversoul, you are perceiving this reality from a singular perspective, but a part of an entirety of a whole that meshes and merges back into the center point of what is, as does every single other perspective out there that you can ever envision in a reality field so massive, so wide, so peculiar in concept that you and I shall never understand what it feels like and what it's like to be at the center point of it all and to be able to experience every single experience and every single perspective within a single moment in time. Within a single moment in time, as we sit in the center point of it all, we are perceiving our reality field from a perspective of sorts. It is the ultimate conundrum of all conundrums that I can ever explain to you with words, but I think today I had a good chance to do so. And I think today, the aspect of the self that is sitting here in front of the unity consciousness of the whole to explain these concepts to you did a wonderful job at perceiving what is from the entirety of the whole within a center point of what is. As from this point of where I sit and where I've merged within the energy frequency of what is, sitting in a singular perspective of the singular body of mine as my soul fractal down into my physicality in the beginning of this reincarnation, my energetic field reaches the center nucleus of what is, the center nucleus of what it's like to be an entirety of a whole of consciousness, witnessing it from the perspective of the center point. But as I'm sitting here as a singular fractal of what is, even I cannot comprehend what it feels like, what it is like, what it tastes like, what it smells like, what it is like to be the entirety of the whole in any singularity of a second in time, to be able to witness, to be able to smell the tastes, to be able to taste the smells, to be able to explore all that there is on a physical level, on a level of reality so steeped in distortions, so steeped in truths, so steeped in negative and positive polarities of what is, so steeped in all that you know on an opposite standpoint of what is, so steeped in every single perspective that you can ever perceive, all at the same time, is a very peculiar concept that I shall never be able to understand until I transcend this body at the end of this singularity of a lifetime and merge back into the ultimate energy of what is. As one day, ladies and gentlemen, I shall do that, and so shall you. And as we make it back into the entirety of the whole of what is, that is when realizations will arrive at our footsteps once more. That is when consciousness itself, perceived, will regain its consciousness once more. That is when the realization of it all will be steeped back into the realization of the unity consciousness of what is. It is a conundrum that I can never explain, but I think in this very moment in time, I'm doing a good job at trying to explain the impossible and the singularity of the impossibility of what is, using words in contexts that we can never understand and that we shall never understand, the entire meaning of it all, as words are just words. Words are a part of an English dictionary so broad and so wide in concepts and scale, so explanatory each word is, as we perceive, as we pronounce, as we stitch together sentences with diversified meanings of what we are trying to explain in a singular moment in time. However, energetic frequency, ladies and gentlemen, is endless. Energetic frequency is limitless. And in this very moment in time, words themselves won't be able to explain the energy of the endlessness of what is, of the endlessness of the unity consciousness that we all belong to, and the unity consciousness itself has a point of endlessness that no one belongs to. as the entirety of the whole, entirety of what is, belongs to a singularity of what is, within a point of a point of a point of fractaling off, of retracting back to that singular fractal, of lifetimes upon lifetimes of reincarnation cycles within a singular fractal of what is. And within that singular fractal of what is, there's multiple fractals that have fractaled off into singularities of what is. And within those singularities of what is, there's an endless amount of reality fields and realities of singularities of what is. And back into a point of what is, into a unity consciousness so great and so grand that no words can ever explain the concepts and the meaning of it all. As I'm sure you feel a bit confused in this moment in time in the way that I've been explaining things, in the words that I've been stitching together to explain the reality field that we live in. But ultimately, our entire reality field, our entire reality perspective is a conundrum, is a huge severity of a tranquility so deep, so tender, so massive, so distorted, so everlasting, so unified, of an entirety of a whole that we are in this very moment in time, that I can't describe to you the meaning of it all in one sentence, in one paragraph, in one video, in 100 videos, in an eternity of videos. As reality fields are limitless, as reality fields are diverse, as reality fields have no reality fields encompassing all of the reality fields that you can ever envision and that you can ever imagine. As perspectives are diverse and perspectives are skewed and perspectives are unified and perspectives are real and perspectives are a conundrum of sorts, as all of these perspectives come back into a precipice of a singularity of a perspective of neutrality, of unconditional love, of unconditional light of what is, of truths flowing within a night so deep, of endless amounts of severities, of tenderness, of different levels of frequencies, of energetic frequencies, floating into a morning of what we shall never be without. And ladies and gentlemen, the day is finally here and the day is finally near, that one of these days that is fast approaching, that is quickly approaching our energetic frequency of what is about to explode into a white light frequency so massive in scale, so diversified in weight, so blinding it will be to our soul of all souls, to the unified soul, to the entirety of the whole of the soul that we are on a massive scale, that it will forevermore bring us back and retract our entire reality field back into the perception and back into the concept of one of the unified whole that we shall forever be, and for the one that has never left us, and for the one that we are, as it shall forever arrive at our doorsteps and be at our footsteps at the end of every reality field that we've ever created, as an exploration of the self that we are, into a unified unity consciousness that we were never without, that we have never been without. As reality fields are wide, reality fields are skewed, reality fields are limitless, and as we approach the footsteps of the end of this reality field, a new one is about to emerge as the cycle continues beyond the perceptions of all that we can see and all that we know and all that we can perceive. As the limitlessness of what is can never be transcribed, can never be explained, can never be perceived, sitting in the singularity of a perspective of what is.